Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the NFL Prop Show. Really can't wait to get this thing started. We weren't with you last week, but we were with you 2 weeks ago when we had a great week. We're going to try to replicate that with a little bit of a different crew. We see everybody in the chat hit the like button. Ladies and gentlemen, we're down a couple of stars, but we've gained one giant star, and that's RJ White. We've got RJ White on the show. I am very happy about that. And of course, Uncle Dave is on the show with me. No prop stars today. Claudia was already out. She's doing other stuff on assignment for SportsLine and CBS Sports, but Proppy not feeling great. So he's not able to make this show. Hopefully maybe he shows up in the chat. I know he'll be watching and rooting us all on. Uncle Dave, how you doing today, buddy?
2 weeks, Sia. First of all, 2 weeks is too long for us to be apart and for giving props. But for 2 weeks, I've had to sit and stew as being the only person on this show to be below. Forget about being below 500. Look at what we did in week 12. One loss between you, Proppy, and Claudia. I applaud you guys. And I'll tell you what, I've been really, really focused, and I studied a ton because I wanted to get it right this week. I only have 3 props. I think they're getting sharper. The lines are getting tougher.
Yeah.
NFL football is getting crazier and crazier. And I don't have a lot that I feel good about. I know I could be trying to chase as many props as I can to try and get my record over 500. I don't care. If I'm under 500 for the year, so be it. I just want to start getting some right. I want to start having records like you have, what Claudia has. And if that means only getting 3 props that I really feel good about, that's what I'm going to do. And so that's what I'm doing. Week 14, we talk about it with Proppy every single year. As the season goes on, the lines get tougher and you have to be more selective. And I strongly encourage everybody, lower your bet sizes and don't put out a ton of bets. Just stick with the ones that you really, really love. Hopefully you love some of ours today.
Less is more, especially in week 14 and beyond. But we're still going to try to find the best ones. RJ, I'm glad you're on the show when we have like that good of a recap screen, because it's obviously not always like that. And I have to concede, while I was 3-0, again, this was 2 weeks ago. So it would have been week 12. I've been pretty cold ever since. So I'm hoping I can have a bit of a rebound. I've been okay on this show, but on SportsLine, a bit cold over the last week or so. RJ, thanks for joining the show. Very happy to have you. Are you impressed by the recap screen? We're hoping the answer is yes.
Yeah, great job by you guys. I saw some wins. I saw that Claudia had a Drake May prop in there, so I'm shocked that Claudia would take a Drake May prop. Credit to you for trusting Adonai Mitchell. I saw you had Adonai Mitchell overhit. Seeing his first few weeks, as the key component of that offense, dropping everything. I was not ready to trust that guy. I think last week I was on Mechie over 3.5 receptions, and he got there eventually, but it was quite a bit of a sweat watching Mitchell catch all those passes. So you guys had some good reads, obviously, in there to put up records that good.
Yeah, I mean, the Adonai thing, I'm just regretful that I wasn't on him last week, either in DFS or in the prop market. But we'll see. There might be some questions about Adonai this week as well. His line has certainly gotten a little bit taller here. We've got Mabs 9,900. To Dave's point, I was taught only bet on things that you love, not things that you like.
Good. Very smart.
Absolutely. Great call. RJ, you're going to kick us off here. So we're going to go, if you're new to the show, hopefully you're not new to the show. If you are, make sure you subscribe to this SportsLine YouTube channel. If you're watching us on Twitter, that's great. Thank you. Hit the like button, all those things, or just come over to the SportsLine YouTube channel and check this prop show out. Make sure you're subscribed. But we go through passing props, rushing props, wide receiver props, and then we talk about the plays we like the most. And of course, we'll answer some of your questions in the chat as well. RJ, if you don't mind, I've got a couple of passing props to give out. I'm going to let you kick things off with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I'm taking Baker Mayfield under 221.5 passing yards. With this number, you look at this number 6 weeks ago, you've been like, this is way too low. This guy is an MVP favorite. He's throwing 250 every game. But that's not been the case. We know he has that shoulder injury he's been dealing with. And even before that, it seemed like he wasn't completely healthy. Only top 200 yards once in the last 5 games, and the shoulder injury was in the middle of that. So this is also the type of game script against the Saints where they're massive favorites. And when you got a quarterback that's hurt, you don't want to have him do too much. So unless he's hitting some big plays down the field, and if you want to take longest completion over to hedge this, I think this number is going to be closer to 200. I think 221.5. Even if you tell your past self 6 weeks ago that's the number, it's going to end up looking in retrospect pretty high once we get to the final of this game.
Before I get to my play, any thoughts on this Bucs game in general or this prop, Dave Richard?
I looked at a bunch of Baker unders, so I'm on board with this. You'll hear me talk about a Bucks over that I like as the show rolls on. You don't see teams throwing a ton against New Orleans. It's a pretty familiar game script that teams have. They build a lead against the Saints, and then they can sit on the ball with the running game, or their defense makes a play. That's what basically happened to the Bucks when they played New Orleans way back when. I think it was week 8, somewhere like that. And so I think Baker still isn't at 100%. I know his left tackle isn't at 100%. There's no reason to believe this Saints defense is going to give them a game. If there is a game, if there is a reason where Baker gets pushed, it's because the Bucs secondary gives up a ton of big yards to Olave and Juwan Johnson and then another newcomer, Devon Vele, and the Saints passing game. And I don't know if that's going to happen, especially with the Saints on the road. So I think this is a sharp look from RJ for sure.
Yeah, to your point, Dave, 202.7. That's the amount of passing yards the Saints are giving up per game. Only 5 teams lower than that. So
right, and when you say giving up, I would use air quotes because I think they could give up a lot more than that if teams chose to throw on them.
So Nathan asks, getting some weapons back. Of course, he's referring, I guess, to Chris Godwin. I don't think Mike Evans is going to be back for this game, right, guys? So he's asking, does that worry you, RJ?
No, I mean he's been playing. He's getting healthier and healthier. So you have to decide. In fantasy, I know Dave probably struggles with whether to start him. I've had him on the bench for a while, waiting for him to come back. And this week in this matchup, where I don't think the volume's going to be there, I definitely have him on the bench, starting other receivers ahead of him.
All right, I'm going to go to my prop. I actually have an over and an under, and I'll give them both out. There's also another play I'm considering, which I'll mention before we get to the rushing props. But Patrick Mahomes, I gave this out on the early edge this morning. I think 34.5 pass attempts is a little low. Like, listen, he's playing the Texans, and it's going to be tough sledding for Kansas City. Now, mind you, they're at home. I think they're going to play pretty well, maybe better than people expect. I don't expect Patrick Mahomes to be particularly efficient, but I also don't expect them to establish the running game in any appreciable way. So I think we're going to see a lot of pass attempts, likely in the short area where he'll get some completions. But this Texans defense is just beastly. And I think, we're going to see some inefficiency from Patrick Mahomes as well. So I like his over 34.5 pass attempts because I'm looking at a little bit more volume and a little less efficiency against this Texans defense. That one is minus 118. Then I'll just move to my under real quick, and then RJ, Dave, I'll get your reaction if you have any reaction to both of these. CJ Stroud in this same game, Sunday Night Football, right? Under 232.5 passing yards. I mean, listen, when you look at CJ Stroud over the last 4 or 5 games, you see some games where he's really blown up, but those have been very situational against a very depleted Ravens defense, against a depleted San Francisco 49ers defense. This is Kansas City at home, and Kansas City's pass defense at home is a different story than Kansas City's pass defense on the road. Also, I don't really trust CJ Stroud in general. I know Jaden Higgins can sometimes get deep, and of course, Nico Collins can get deep as well, but I really don't see CJ Stroud completing a lot of deep shots here. I think a lot of underneath stuff. They'll try to get Woody Marks going, try to get maybe a little bit of Nick Chubb going, but I don't think it's going to be a very efficient or extensive game from a passing yard standpoint for CJ Stroud. So give me CJ Stroud's under 232.5. I will mention this line is over at FanDuel. A lot of places have this a lot lower, and that's why I want to jump on the 232.5. Some places have this in the 223 to like 227 range. So go grab the 232.5 if you can. Gentlemen, RJ, I'll go to you first. Any reaction? Obviously, these two quarterbacks facing each other. Any reaction to either of these props?
Yeah, the home thing, the number stinks to me. Like 34.5 stinks because he's had under 34 attempts twice. And so you look at the game log and you're like, well, it seems like 34 is kind of his baseline. Why is the number only 34.5? And I think it's because of the injuries at tackle. They have a lot of both guys could miss. I think one is Josh Allen's already on IR.
Yes.
And it seems like they're prepping for Jalen Moore to play on the right side, which you put Wanya Morris on the left side. We saw last year that is a bad idea. That's the end of the road for Patrick Mahomes. And if anybody knows who Wanya Morris is, the other guy that's named Wanya Morris, they'll get that reference. So my worry is that they hand the ball off a little more and try to keep the ball out of his hands so he is not getting completely obliterated. But look, they're 6-6. They got to go win the game. So if the chips are down and they're losing this game, he's going to have to go out and make plays and throw the ball. So this might be a thing where I'm going to tail Sia's bet, but I'm going to do it second quarter live, maybe halftime live, where they start to get down. And then all of a sudden 13 first half attempts turns into 38 by the time we're done with the game.
It's an interesting point. Dave, real quick. I mean,
Sure.
part of the reason I went with the inefficiency as opposed to the efficiency is because of those offensive line problems. But I hear you. Like, Kansas City is probably going to try to establish the run. I just don't think they're going to be very successful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a lot of these lines are fishy, and I did a ton of research on Mahomes over 22.5 completions, and I couldn't go for it because I just think that, to your point, there could be a lot of rushing, and I think it could be inefficient rushing between both of these teams. The general game plan for Kansas City when they've had a bad offensive line is getting the ball out quick. In fact, when their offensive line was beat up in week 16 last year, when they took on the Texans, what did Patrick Mahomes do to start the game? He was getting the ball out fast. He didn't complete a throw of longer than 8 air yards until the middle of the second quarter against Houston. And so he wound up completing 28 passes in the game. He also threw 41 times in the game. They won the game 27-19. When they met in the playoffs a few weeks later, he didn't throw as much. Houston controlled the clock. Joe Mixon was healthy. I feel like both these teams are going to try and run the ball a lot against each other, and they're going to be a lot of punts. Is there a way we can take the over on total punts in the game? Because that might be where I would put my money on this one. I just think that a lot of the lines are inefficient, but if you're trying to find something on Patrick Mahomes, I think you're on the right track. Either the over on completions, which is what I kind of lean, or the over on the total attempts, which is where you've gone, Sia.
Yeah, I had Mahomes completions against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. It was 23.5, and he had 20 with 8 minutes and I think 30 seconds left in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That was a tough beat for me. It was actually the start of my slight slide here over at SportsLine. Real quick, RJ, because I know you did the NFL show, which is in everybody's feed. It's on SportsLine and certainly in everybody's podcast feed on Apple or Spotify. What's your take on this game? Because 3.5 seems like a lot of points against the Texans defense that's amazing and a Chiefs offensive line that has some issues, but it's the Chiefs at the end of the day. What's your take on this line?
Yeah, if you just go by, like, let's say we're questionable on these tackles, right? And you go into the game, I think Chiefs should be 5. I think they have established themselves as one of the best teams in the league, but that is a terrible matchup to go into with your tackles hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand why the line got down to 3.5. I thought that when 3s popped up, I would be like, oh yeah, sure. That's the time I'm going to take the Chiefs. I'm waiting for that. And I just couldn't do it, So I looked at the 3.5s and I said, I think you got to be on Texans plus 3.5 because it's probably going to be a lower scoring game. I said on the show on Wednesday, I believe the under in the game was my pick because I agree with you guys. Some punts. We're not going to see even 42 points in this game, which is weird with a Chiefs game. You expect a lot of offense. So I think it's going to be a tight game where 3 points ends up winning it. So I like getting the plus 3.5 there.
Before we move on to rushing props, let me get your opinion. Dave, I'll start with you. So speaking of games that we're just not going to see a ton of passing success, or maybe in this case with the Packers and the Bears, it's not as much as that as it is. Maybe they're just going to really lean into the run. Like the Bears have been really good with the run as of late. I kind of like Caleb Williams over 30.5 pass attempts. It's minus 105 right now. Again, that's one where the line looks really low. But I don't know. I love the Bears run game. I really do. I get it. But I don't know that they're going to be able to go on the road in Green Bay and do the same thing they did against the Eagles last week.
I think they're going to try, and I think they've got the offensive line to do it. That line is one of 4 red flag lines. We've talked about it on the show before, Sia. Lines where I think the odds makers want you to go one way.
Yeah.
And then they kind of bait you into it. And I think they want you to take the over on Caleb Williams' pass attempts because he's been over it in so many games in a row. To me, it's either you get brave and you take the under for a quarter of a unit or you stay away entirely. I do see a pathway where the Bears run game does get some traction against the Packers. And I see a pathway where the Packers run game gets some traction against the Bears, even though the Bears are getting healthy at linebacker. They should get 2 of their top 3 guys back.
Yeah, Jacobs, just so everybody knows, his rushing yards prop is around 77.5. RJ, any thoughts on Caleb Williams? And again, I'm going for volume rather than efficiency. It's just not a lot of volume because you don't usually see it as low as 30.5.
Yeah, I think the key name here, oddly enough, is Devontae Wyatt, right? He got hurt. He's out for the season now for the Packers. We saw when he left the Cowboys game, I said he should be MVP, not even Defensive Player of the Year, MVP, because they went from giving up 3 points through most of the first half to giving up 40 points by the end of that game in a tie game. And it seemed like he was the cog that made that defensive line, move. He's kind of a very underrated player on a line with, Micah Parsons there. So I think they will be able to run it a bit with their two backs, like to throw both of them in there and probably limit his volume. That's why we're seeing this number as low as it is. And we all know Caleb will like to take off too. So a couple of attempts that you may get with other quarterbacks where they're throwing it out of bounds, he's running it and trying to pick up even 2 yards, not just 7 yards, but like
Sure.
2 or 3 yards because he'll do what he does there.
See, if we agree that the attempts line is fishy for Caleb Williams, and we agree that he's inefficient as a thrower, especially against a defense like the Packers, which they rush 4 guys, they play a lot of zone coverage, they don't want to give up the big play. Maybe the move here is to take the under on the yardage for Caleb Williams. And that way, if the Bears running game is going for reasons that we've already talked about in the last 2 minutes, Caleb won't have to throw that much. And we could see the Bears kind of win with their run game, or at least stay competitive with their run game. And Caleb Williams doesn't have to make things happen downfield. I actually kind of like that look.
So a couple things there. So the yardage might change slightly because right before we went live, Rome Odunze was ruled out. I don't think that's going to matter too much to his yardage, but I'm just throwing that out there. The other thing is what worries me about that is, this is a 6.5 point spread. Again, it might be wrong. I think it's a lot of points, but this is a potential negative game script where you get classic Caleb Williams in the fourth quarter, just kind of chucking it around, which kind of plays into my play a little bit. This is just a lean, by the way, but I maybe could stack some yardage in the fourth quarter, Dave. That would be my only pushback.
It's possible, but I still, it's not like Rome Odunze was lighting the world on fire for them. And in fact, it's kind of good that he's out. And on the Fantasy Football Today videos that we did this week, we did one where we try and recommend players to get ahead of, and one of them was Luther Burden. I know his number is 40.5. I would jump on that over specifically for this matchup against zone coverage, because he can win underneath and make plays after the catch, and I think he's going to get a huge opportunity to do so. I'm actually going to go through my leagues while we're on the show and just see if Luther Burden is out there, just in case.
See, do you have any worry? You said Odunze's out, right? He has 90 targets on the season, by far the team lead. Are there balls that Caleb Williams would just throw up to him that he's not going to? He's going to take it down and run, and maybe you're losing an attempt or two here or there because you're not having Odunze in there.
Yeah, I would have said yes a month ago. But just Rome Odunze has been so non-existent over the last month that I don't know. Maybe those go to Colston Loveland instead, or like to Dave's point, Luther Burden. Maybe DJ Moore gets involved. Again, normally that would have been a big deal to me. But listen, I've got Rome Odunze on most of my fantasy teams, and I thought I had the greatest pick ever in the first few weeks of the season, and he just has not really been around at all. I will tell you this: our sponsor, of course, is BetMGM. Make it legendary. They are the ones that have this 30.5. At -105. And for the record, the under is juiced to -125, as you might expect. Part of the reason this was just a lean and not an official play is because it wouldn't shock me if at BetMGM specifically, because they have sort of the best number here, that this might drop down to 29.5. It's certainly possible that happens, in which case I actually probably would end up making that an official play. The other places have this over 30.5 in that -115 to -120 range, just so everybody knows. So this was a lean. It was kind of a hold and wait and see where this line ends up plateauing at BetMGM specifically. Shall we move on to rushing props, gentlemen?
I hope
think
so.
we should.
We
Actually,
should. There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. But before we do that, RJ White, you're the Bills fan. Cale Davenport says, Josh Allen, I actually like this play. Speaking of pass attempts and unders, under 30.5 pass attempts, obviously they play the Bengals. Should be a positive game script. Should be a James Cook day. More on James Cook later. What do you think, RJ?
Yeah, they'll make it a positive game script. We saw what happened last week when they had both tackles out and they were like, we are not throwing the ball. We are just going to run it down Pittsburgh's throat and it's going to work. And sure did. He just kept running and they won the game in a blowout fashion. I think they're going to try to do the same thing against this Bengals defense that is bad against the run. That, even if Trey Hendrickson isn't out there, when you have some tackle injuries, and Deion Dawkins, I believe, is cleared. I'm not sure if the right tackle is going to play yet. But if it works, why go away from it? So this might be another one where they try it early And if they start to fall behind because Burrow's letting up this banged up defense, then they have to abandon it. So I think you kind of have to feel out the way the game is going to go. If you do think the Bengals are going to cover, I don't like this play. If you think the Bills are going to cover, then I do like this play. So it might be a same game parlay that you put together to correlate with the Bills covering here.
Yeah, I think
Did you mention the weather in this game?
Snow. So no, but
Cold, snow. Yeah, I mean this could be a situation where it's conducive to running.
Should I just go ahead and give out my pick then? Because my pick is I was going to do James Cook. We're moving to rushing props. Kale, I think that's a great look, by the way. My play is James Cook. I was going to do longest rush over 18.5, which I still like. But the path to win for the Bills, like clearly, I can't believe James Cook had as many carries as he did last week. So that like almost worries me to an extent. But clearly, this is the path to winning. James Cook over 99.5 rushing yards. This is such a high total. I totally get it. But I just think if we're going to see 20 carries for James Cook, I think he's going to get there. I also think he'll get there on the longest rush, but I just prefer the volume approach here. It's a lot of yards. This is a Jonathan Taylor line against a bad defense. But RJ, am I crazy? Is this just too high? Is it a stay away for you?
It's a little bit high because they're going to be defending the run after what they saw last week. And especially if it is bad weather. If you're counting on the bad weather, then why do you not just stack the line and try to stop James Cook? So if he gets 24 carries and 95 yards, you're like any other day that's easy 100 yards for him if he's getting that amount of workload. So I'm going to be looking at Ray Davis obviously too, because if you do think it's going to be a high workload game, they're obviously not going to. They think they're a playoff team. They're not going to run James Cook into the ground this close to the end of the season. You got to mix Ray Davis in there. So let's get him some rushing attempts and some rushing yards and probably hit his over.
You might be interested to know that in the last 5 games, the Bengals have given up 5.6 yards per rush, 1.93 yards before contact per rush. That's bottom 5. 3.68 yards after contact per rush. That's bottom 5. 25 missed tackles on runs. This is just in the last 5 games. And then you're adding snow into it where these defenders could end up slipping all over the place.
Yeah.
They're changing direction. It's always easier for offenses in snow than it is for defense. I can't say I love it, Sia, but it's not because of James Cook. It's not because of the matchup. It's just because the number's so darn high.
If I forced you to take one between the 99.5 and the over 18.5 longest rush, Dave, what would you take?
The longest rush.
Yeah. Okay. How about you, RJ?
I think you. Yeah, I would take the rush yards, I think, because I think if he has a rush at that number, then he's going to hit the 100 yards. So like if he has a 19 or 20 yard rush, I don't see here stopping him getting to 100.
I don't know if you can parlay the two. You probably can't, but that would be a fun thing to consider. Or just make both bets and win them both.
Kale Davenport is asking about Chris Rodriguez. Kale, you are either we're both really sharp or neither of us are sharp because we've got a lot of the same things that we're thinking here. But let's transition, Dave, to RJ Harvey. Talk to me about him. I heard some very good coach speak from Sean Payton earlier this week.
Yeah, you're going to hear about it again in a minute. Harvey should get plenty of opportunities against a suspect Raiders run defense that hung in there last week but broke down in the second half. So I like the over on 13.5 rush attempts, and I got it at -130. You know how I feel about laying that much juice. I think this number is going to go up to 14.5, and in some places it's at plus money, but it's 15.5. I would take it there too. Look, the Raiders offense can't do many things right, and that should be the case this week against a really good Denver Broncos pass rush. Denver should dominate time of possession. That gives them a lot of time to run the football. Plenty of Harvey rush attempts. J.K. Dobbins had 18 rushes against the Broncos in Week 10 against Las Vegas. One of 5 running backs in the past 5 weeks to have at least 16 carries against them. And now, if I may, I'd like to do an interpretive reading from Sean Payton's press conference this week. The question was asked if his vision for RJ Harvey has changed with regard to his protection skills. And Payton said, yes, I would say this, though. There's that saying, you haven't seen anything yet. He still has this rare running skill set that you're going to see and continue to. So Sean Payton isn't giving up on RJ Harvey anytime soon. The game script should be perfect for him. Like I said, okay, taking this at 14.5, 15.5. You can wait for the juice to drop and the number to go up. But either way, RJ Harvey is going to be a busy boy. This is one of my favorite props of the week.
RJ, I feel like Sean Payton like actively lies to us about stuff like this, but I do like this bet. I mean, listen, I agree with Dave with everything you said, and I understand Sean Payton is like actually probably going to do this, but he is just so weird with how he uses his personnel. With all that said, RJ, you and Dave are on the same wavelength here because you don't have the same prop, but you have a similar one.
Yeah, I do like Dave going with the attempts instead of the yards because the one thing the Raiders do have is the third fewest rush yards per carry, to running backs there. So that's because teams get up on them big, and then they just have to stack the box and plow into the middle of the box for 2-3 yards. So I think it makes sense he's going to get a lot of rush attempts here, or because it's Sean Payton, he just might get a bunch of catches in the flats because sometimes Sean Payton likes to run his offense left to right instead of up and down, and it gets very frustrating not knowing which game he's going to do that and which he's not. My play is anytime touchdown, even for the efficiency that the Raiders have in not giving up those yards per carry. They give up the third most rushing touchdowns to running backs this year. 4 different running backs scored 5 total touchdowns against this defense over the last 2 weeks. Kind of tells you where they are right now. I think the defense has kind of had enough of this team and ready for the next year. I played them against the Chargers, figuring with the Chargers offensive tackle issues, Max Crosby on the field, we were going to get a competitive game there. And it was competitive for a half or so. And then they kind of checked out on it seemed like. So I think the second half is really going to be RJ Harvey's time to shine in this game. He has 8 touchdowns on the season, even splitting time with J.K. Dobbins most of the year. I think these odds need to be shorter. I'd say minus 140, maybe even minus 150. I think minus 120 is a very good price to get on Harvey scoring a touchdown in this game.
All right, so we got RJ Harvey anytime touchdown. We've got RJ Harvey over 13.5 rush attempts. Let's go back to the James Cook game real quick because Adam is asking about Chase Brown. This is something I looked at as well. Uncle Dave, his rushing total over, and I would understand the argument that it's somewhat game script related. Like, do the Bills get out in front super early? I don't know that that's necessarily going to be the case. This seems pretty low, 50.5 rushing yards. I think it's maybe 52, 53 in some places, but 50.5 rushing yards against the Bills rush defense, Dave.
Seems fishy. Seems too good to be true. There's 2 things in play. Number one, we saw last week with Samaje Perine back for Cincinnati, the playing time, not the carries necessarily, but the playing time for Chase Brown did take a step back. And also, like, the opportunities for Chase Brown were there because the Bengals were playing with the lead. Number 2, I think there's a chance. I don't know if it's going to happen this week, but Ed Oliver is on his way back for Buffalo. Maybe the latest report says that he's not going to play this week. That's something that I can check into and get back to you on in like 5 minutes. But
I think he's coming back in the playoffs.
Okay. All right. So then in that case, this isn't a factor at all. So look, there's definitely chances for Chase Brown to get, let's call it 60 yards in the game. So if you're going to lean one way here, it's going to be on the over, but it seems fishy that it's this low.
RJ?
Yeah, I'll add that if we think that Buffalo is going to have, a grand old time running the ball like they did last week, they're going to have the ball for a big chunk of this game. So Chase Brown probably is not going to have the opportunities to run it. You might only get 10 to 11 carries when you're thinking because of the weather, it might be 16, 17, 18 carries. So I would worry about that part of it. I would also worry that there's really no wind to speak of, right? It's going to be cold. It's going to be some snow probably, at least early on, probably taper off in the second half. And the Bills, defense has been beat up all year, and it's been different position groups. Sometimes it's the corners, sometimes it's safeties, linebackers, defensive tackles in the middle of the year, and now it's defensive ends. You got Joey Bosa out. You got Epinesa picking up an injury in practice. So I don't know who's going to rush from the edge. And so if Joe Burrow doesn't really have to worry about pressure as much as he usually does from the edge, I think he's going to go off with some of these receivers, which kind of leads into one of my receiver pick that I have here that we're going to get into in a little bit. But I wouldn't worry too much about the weather. I think Burrow's probably in for a good game, and Chase Brown isn't going to get the volume that some people expect.
Professional tease from one RJ White. I want to get to Bucky Irving, Dave, but let me get to Cal real quick, or Kale. Am I saying that? No, Kale. It's got to be Kale Davenport, right? C-A-L-E? That's Kale, right?
We're going to call him Callie for the remainder of the show.
Now let's call him. Actually, Callie sounds cool. Chris Rodriguez sounds cool. Callie says over 39.5 rushing yards. And so this is really interesting. This is something I looked at as well as a Washington Commanders fan. Not that I have inside info on this by any means, but I do like Chris Rodriguez. I like what we've seen over the last 5-6 weeks. I mean, he's looked like clearly the better runner, the tougher runner, the more north-south guy than, let's say, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Jeremy McNichols gets in there a lot too. But the thing about Jeremy McNichols, he's usually in there in negative game scripts where, yeah, he can run a little bit, but he's really playing that Austin Eckler role. Chris Rodriguez is certainly the running back one at this point. And that's evidenced by 3 of the last 4 games. I think he's had 11 plus carries in each of, I shouldn't say each of them, but 3 of the last 4 games, he's had 11 plus carries. Now, granted, the last 2 have gone to overtime, but it's not like Chris Rodriguez was getting a ton of carries in overtime. I like his efficiency. It hasn't been amazing, but I like how he runs. And what I love about this the best, and I'm taking his over 10.5 rushing attempts at minus 120. Actually, it might be minus 118 in some places. What I love about this the best is that we're not looking at a classic, oh, the Washington defense is going to give it up early and it's going to be a negative game script. And are they even going to be able to run the ball? Like, they tend to run the ball regardless. But you got Jaden Daniels back for this game, which I think is going to help the offense in general and help keep this game close. And you got J.J. McCarthy on the other side. And I understand this Washington defense is really bad, but they're not so bad that J.J. McCarthy is going to have like some 20-0 lead and this running game is going to be phased out for Washington. So I think Chris Rodriguez and this running game are going to be involved this entire game. And Chris Rodriguez is going to be the guy that's going to get somewhere between 11 and 15 carries. So yes, I like his over 39.5 rushing yards. I mean, the Minnesota defense, a little hot and cold when it comes to yards against from a rushing standpoint, but I like the attempts more than anything. Dave, your thoughts here?
I'm a little nervous about it, to be honest with you. It's Chris Rodriguez having a very inefficient game last week, and the Commanders having plenty of other options if they wanted to, with both Krosky-Merritt, who's been a bust for sure, and then McNichols, like you talked about. And you're right, McNichols' role is what it is. Jaden Daniels is back under center. You'd think that whoever they have in that backfield with Jaden Daniels will have a spike in efficiency and have a shot at a good game. But Daniels himself is going to take the ball a little bit and run a little bit. I think he'll throw a little bit more too. I wonder if because of the matchup against Minnesota, do they want to go with a sleeker running back instead of the more physical grinder type like Chris Rodriguez? The line seems too good to be true too, because 3 of his last 4 double digits. I am not suggesting a showdown. I think if I was going to lean one way or the other, actually, I probably wouldn't take it at all. But I do worry a little bit about Chris Rodriguez getting in the neighborhood of 13, 15 carries. Can he get to 11? Maybe. It's just a matter of, is he still the guy for the Commanders? Is he the best fit for them with Jaden Daniels at quarterback?
Chris Rodriguez, week 14, 13 carries, 58 yards. That's what I'm predicting. He looks just like the better runner than JCM. I mean, that's just me watching the games. And I know we all watch them, but just because I'm a Commanders fan, I'm like, okay, this guy is like clearly the guy they trust in these high leverage situations.
Sure. But then I also think the odds makers would do more with that line and make it a little bit more competitive.
I don't think they know what to do with Rodriguez, to be honest with you, because he's
neither
just not a household. Well, that's the thing. He's just not a household name. I just don't think. I think if they put it at 12.5, I think people would just kind of like bang the under there. I just don't think they know what to do. I think 10.5 is short. I think it probably RJ at this point should be 11.5. Any thoughts before we get to Bucky Irving?
Yeah, I don't know that the attempts is the way to play it, although I am like the biggest Rodriguez fan. I don't know if Dave remembers from before the season. Like, that was the dude I was drafting in that backfield. I was like, JCM, everybody loves this guy. This is the guy that should be having the short yardage role. It sounds like they want to give him that role. And then he just didn't play that much early on. And I couldn't understand it. He's been on the field more and he's been scoring touchdowns. So I think the play here, if you're going to play Rodriguez, why not just take him to score the touchdown? It's like plus 160, plus 165. We know that that's his role in the offense. He's been getting touchdowns more often than not in the stretch that you're talking about. And you worry about Jaden Daniels coming back using his legs, but it's his first game back off a major injury. You probably don't think he's going to be running, taking hits down the goal line. They're going to probably hand it to Rodriguez in those situations. So I think plus 160 is like a number they really don't know what to do with him, because that number I think should be a lot lower, probably in the 120 range.
Another thing I'll add, Dave, you might have had something extra as well, but
no, please continue.
The last 2 times Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt actually got double-digit carries, and I'm going off memory here, but I'm pretty sure the last 2 times, it's been like 2 out of the last 6 games or whatever it was, we still saw Chris Rodriguez get to double-digit carries. So there is a universe where Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt could have 8 carries instead of the 4 or 5 or 6 that maybe we anticipate, and Chris Rodriguez could still end up with 12, 13 carries. Dave, should we head over to Bucky Irving World?
I would love to go to Bucky Irving World. And man, if you've had him in fantasy, you've been waiting for Bucky Irving World to be open. And we got it last week. He was outstanding. And so I'm going to ride that. I think Bucky Irving has another big game. He's already taking on the Saints at home. I'll take the over on his rushing yards, 65.5 at -114. Here's just a quick recap of how running backs have done lately against this Saints defense. Devon Achane, 6.1 yards per carry, 134 yards. Bijan Robinson, 5 yards per carry, 70 yards. Kyron Williams, 4.6 yards per carry, 114 yards. These are 3 of the past 4 lead running backs against the New Orleans Saints. Now we're getting Irving, fresh off his first game back, had 61 yards in the touchdown on the ground, still at home against another inferior defense. Really, it's just a bet on a fresh-legged running back cracking off some big runs and finishing with a strong game. We already talked about Baker Mayfield and how we don't think he's going to have to do a lot of work. This is where I think the work comes in. I think Bucky Irving has a big game. I'm taking the over on 65.5 rushing yards.
RJ, any thoughts on Bucky?
Yeah, I mean, it's correlated with the Mayfield under that I talked about. They're not going to put him in a lot of situations to throw because you're just going to be handing it to Bucky and maybe Rachaad White too. So it feels like a game where you're going to see a lot of rush attempts, like those Bears games where both running backs are going to get pretty decent amount of work. And I think both guys go over while Baker is not going to do a ton through the air.
All right, let's move on to wide receivers. But if you have questions about quarterbacks and running backs, just because we moved on, it doesn't mean we can't answer those questions. So get them in the chat. And a reminder, because we've only done this now, Dave and RJ, on the YouTube channel live. This would be what, our second or third show doing this live, probably our third.
For this year, yes.
For this year, because we were doing it on the network. So people might not be fully aware that we're doing this every single week from now on. This is not a special thing. We'll be doing this for the pendency of this NFL season on this YouTube channel at 3:00. So make sure you get in here. And Proper Rocky says, smash that like button. That's really good advice. Dave, I'm very intrigued by this Rams-Cardinals game. There's a lot of things that I potentially like here, including passing volume from Jacoby Brissett. If that is true, and if I'm right about that, that probably means Michael Wilson's getting some volume as well.
Especially because Marvin Harrison Jr. and Greg Dortch are out for the Cardinals in this game, which means that the 2 guys that are going to get the majority of the targets from Jacoby Brissett will be Wilson and Trey McBride. And as soon as Dortch was ruled out, I hammered Michael Wilson over 5.5 receptions. I got it at plus money at plus 110. You can find it now at BetMGM. Over 5.5 catches at -125. That's a lot of juice. I don't love it, but I would take this at 6.5. I would take this at probably 7.5. We know that without those receivers there, it sets up perfectly for Wilson to reprise his role from what we saw in weeks 11 and 12 when they didn't have Harrison. In those games, he caught 15 and 10 passes for over 100 yards in each game. The Cardinals have been one of the past heaviest offenses since Jacoby Brissett took over under center. I suspect that Wilson will continue to see those targets as the Cardinals chase points against the explosive Rams. This is an open and shut case. My other favorite play of the week, Michael Wilson over 5.5 receptions, plus 110, -125, whatever you get it at. If it's 5.5, that's great. But you could wait a little bit too. And if it gets to 6.5 and that's a juice that you like, or maybe even plus money at 6.5, take it. He's going to get there.
RJ, any thoughts on this game, especially on the Cardinals side with potential passing volume?
Yeah, I think, if you can get plus on that number, great, do it now. We're not going to see that by the time we get to Sunday. So if you're getting to this late or you're thinking about what to bet on Arizona late and you're having that same thought process as Dave, I'm just going to take the over on Michael Wilson. This number might be 6.5 -130. It'll just keep going up and up and up. So what I would start thinking about now is who are the alternate guys that we're going to play in this game? Is it going to be Higgins? Is it going to be Michael Carter? We saw him have a huge passing volume last week. So, who's going to fill that gap that we know that Wilson's going to kind of take over the Harrison role, who takes over the Dortch role, who takes over the other targets that Arizona is sure to have in this game because they are, tough underdogs of more than a touchdown in this game. And we know Jacoby Brissett is playing very good football and getting the ball downfield and hitting guys. So I think we're going to have a chance to hit some overs on like Michael Carter over 2.5 receptions, maybe Higgins over 1.5 receptions at some decent prices and pretty easily cash those.
Higgins, his receiving yards over under is 9.5 yards. Wow. I can't help but think that we're about to see a lot of Elijah Higgins playing. You know me, Sia, I don't like to take player props on fringe guys like Elijah Higgins and guys like that. And I would consider Wilson a fringe guy if everybody was healthy for Arizona, but
Mhm.
we've seen him as a focal point when Marvin Harrison Jr. hasn't been in there. So I would be a little squeamish, maybe like, again, a quarter unit, something like that on Elijah Higgins. Xavier Weaver could be another guy who sees more playing time because Dortch is out and because Marvin Harrison Jr. is out. Imari DeMarcado could be coming back for Arizona. That might be why we haven't seen a ton of running back props for the Cardinals. He would be somebody that would be interesting as far as receiving props go, even though Proppy has taught me, banged it into my head, don't take receiving props for running backs. Again, this is going to be something that Jacoby Brissett's going to have to do. We should probably circle back to Brissett. He's got a supremely high pass attempt total. I think it was like 38.5.
It's 37.5, and his completions lead the NFL this week at 24.5, and his passing yards are 253.5 to 258.5, which puts him second, right behind Matt Stafford.
My degenerate niece Claudia on a Sunday morning pregame show that we're on together on CBS Sports HQ gave Jacoby Brissett, I think the number was 24.5 completions last week. And I basically turned to her when she said it, and I said, this bet is basically, will Jacoby Brissett play 4 quarters? Because if he's playing 4 quarters, he's throwing so much, he's going over, and sure enough, he did. We could go back to that one this week too. Brissett's completions over 24.5, whatever it is.
NFL record for completions in a game this year, 47, I think it was in one game. So, I mean, you can't really make the number
part of their offense.
So this is cool because I think people are unaware of the fact that you can, if you're watching us on Twitter, which a lot of people are, I'm actually checking that number now. If you're watching us on Twitter, you can ask questions on Twitter. You literally just click on the image and you'll see a place where you can ask questions. That's where Kevin Charles is. He says, any thoughts on Trey McBride? I mean, I guess that would be the obvious question. Trey McBride over 7.5 receptions. It's a lot, but again, we're just talking about 24.5 completions is the prop. Trey McBride's going to be the number one, quote, air quotes, receiver. Dave, is this something you'd stay away from because it's so high?
I wouldn't stay away from it. I would rather go with Michael Wilson for obvious reasons because, I mean, all Wilson has to do is get 6 catches, whereas McBride has to get 8, but we've seen him get north of 8 plenty with Jacoby Brissett. This might be where we go for a parlay, a same-game parlay, and I think they'll let you do that one. Put those two together and get yourself some odds in your favor.
RJ, go ahead, RJ. You had something else.
No, Arizona team total over too. Throw that in the play in the parlay.
I'm going to find out what the odds are on the over for those two guys right now and spill it with you too.
I was going to ask you, RJ, what are your thoughts on because what's interesting is that the 2 quarterbacks that are slated for the most yardage and probably the most potential touchdowns are Matt Stafford and Jacoby Brissett. I'm not asking for props on the other side, but what's your expectation on the Rams side? Just Stafford just throwing it around the yard because playing indoors in Arizona?
Yeah, so many people have been able to throw it all over Arizona these last few weeks. Now, they got Will Johnson back last week, and he was a big part of how well that they were playing before his injury. We'll see if they get Walter Nolan back. I'm not sure what his status is, but might be a little bit tougher to throw there. But look, Devontae Adams, I believe, is confirmed playing. Maybe Dave can back that up. With him and Puka Nacua, I mean, Stafford should just go off in any game where he has both those guys.
Of course, we said that last week, and Stafford had a good game. The Rams' offense was good, but Carolina made a handful of plays and ended up winning that one. That stunk. I'll double check on Devontae Adams, but I expect him to play. If you were to take the over on both McBride and Wilson receptions, plus 220 is the number that I see. That feels good. And I don't like parlays. You know me, Sia. You know that I don't like parlays, but I would do that one.
Yeah, my concern with parlaying the two together is that, like, what if the Rams decide to take one away effectively and let the other one beat them? They're like, we're just going to live with Michael Wilson catching a bunch of balls, and if we can take away McBride, and we think that we can win the game that way. So you might get a Wilson like 10 catch game and McBride 4 or 5. You know, that would be my worry.
Big Cheesy joining us late, clearly. He says, first of all, he says the Rams win by 14. I think that's a reasonable take. And then he says, Dave, you're going to like this. If Big Cheesy's sharp, and you're wearing that early edge shirt. Big Cheesy's almost always in the early edge morning show watching us live. Love the shirt. If you're listening to the podcast, Dave Richard, Uncle Dave, he's on that Fantasy Football Today YouTube channel more often than not. Well, he's everywhere. CBS Sports HQ, CBS Sports Network, all of those things. He's wearing an early edge shirt. I respect that. Big Cheesy says, hey, fellas. Bucky Irving over 66.5 rush yards at minus 115. He says for him, it's a 3-unit play. Dave, that's your exact pick that you gave out 20 minutes ago.
And I absolutely love it. It's obviously one of my favorite plays this week too for me to give it out on the show. 3 units is a lot though, Cheesy. Be careful. You don't want to you don't want to put too many units on any bet. If you make a bunch of 3-unit bets all the time, that's fine. But if you're usually like 1 unit, half unit, now you're jumping to 3, just be careful. It's a long season, so there's plenty of games left next week and beyond.
Bet responsibly. We have actually a fantasy football question for you, Dave. Wayne says, Ibuka or Sutton PPR?
I like Sutton better. I think he's going to continue to see targets from Denver, and obviously a favorable matchup for him. Ibuka obviously gets targets. He just hasn't been coming through with them. And we talked about how we're a little bit worried about how much throwing Baker's going to have to do. So I know this sounds crazy, but Sutton over Ibuka.
All right, let's get to.
I've got a report from ESPN. Devontae Adams is expected to play.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about other high-flying receivers that are second fiddle, because we know Devontae Adams technically, I guess, is second fiddle to Puka Nacua, although when it comes to the red zone, that's not the case. But RJ White, you've got to play on second fiddle in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I like T. Higgins over 52.5 receiving yards. I think this is low because of the weather concerns with the snow. But like I said, hardly any wind. Not worried about the pass rush with Buffalo with those guys banged up. So I think Burrow's going to be able to get the ball downfield to Higgins, and he's going to hit a couple big plays here. That will make this number pretty easy to hit. Back from concussion protocol. So let's treat him as fully healthy. Let's not treat him as like he might, re-injure an ankle or something. When it's a concussion protocol thing, you just can't take that one of those type of hits. You're going to stay in the game. He was above 60 in 4 or 5 before the game with the injury. So this seems like a 60 should be the baseline, and it's getting ratcheted down because of the weather, which I don't think, like I said, is that much of a concern. And I think you should probably ratchet him a little bit up because the defensive end injuries in Buffalo, where Joe Burrow should be able to get a lot of volume in that game. So I think 52.5 is low for Higgins. I think it'll probably rise a little bit, and people will be a little apprehensive. They won't be that all in on Higgins. Probably get to like the 55 range, but I think he's going to go over 60.
Yeah, I think this is a sharp play. RJ, I got a question for you because this is really sticking out to me. I don't know how to say this screen name because they've changed the handle. So it's 19SC0TT. I'll just call you 19SC, I guess. He says Arizona, and I ask you because I know you already done the NFL picks show, again, in everybody's feed. Arizona first half, team total, I think he's saying, over 9.5. Gosh, that seems a little low, right? Anything under 10 would be pretty. I know this Rams defense is great, but Arizona at home, 10 points?
Yeah, well, it's Scott. It's SCOTT.
Yeah, but I thought that was a 0.
It is a 0, but that internet names you can sub zeros and 3s and 1s in. It's Scott. It's
Sorry,
Scott. I think Scott's, it's a good read there. The thing is with those first half numbers is 9.5 does feel a little low, but they don't give you like 10.5 and 11.5. Typically you either get to the 9.5 or the 12.5. So that's where they put it, just with Arizona's overall team total. I do think they hit the over. Probably in chase mode, they're more likely to score more points in the second half, but 10 feels like a number they should hit with that passing game the way it is. And the Rams defense, they get a lot of flowers for how good they are for most of this year. They have been shaky in some games against teams with good passing units. We know both San Francisco games. We saw what they did against Carolina, which isn't necessarily a great passing unit. I think it really kind of boils down to, are they going to get the takeaways really to limit an offense? And Brissett, historically, one of the best interception rates ever. It might still be leading among all quarterbacks over Aaron Rodgers. I know they were neck and neck, but he's had a few interceptions coming in the last few weeks. So, very good quarterback at avoiding interceptions. It feels like Arizona should be able to get a touchdown in this game. And then in this first half, and if they do get that, I don't see how it doesn't go over to 10.
A lot of people going in on me for 19SC0TT. Dave, do you want to join them? Listen, I'm a lawyer. I'm very literal. You like, if that's going to be your screen name, I'm going to read it like that's what it is. Dave, make fun of me, please.
I'm not going to make fun of you, Sia. It's okay to make mistakes. I think you can see my name like down here somewhere at some point. If Ben could bring it up, and then you can call me what I put in there.
Oh, what is that? Oh, so in the middle of the screen, we've got D at V3.
That's me.
All right. And then we've got RJ White, who has done it properly. We've got some questions to get to, and then we're going to get to our best bets. Let's start from the bottom and we'll work our way back up. Let's see. Kyron Williams, questionable. So we think he's going to play, right, Paparaki? Yeah. But he says he likes Blake Corum over 32.5 rushing yards. That's high for a backup running back, but Dave, I don't hate that. Corum's looked just as good as Kyron, if not better.
This is a reason to talk about why taking the overs on Matthew Stafford's attempts and yardage could be a trap this week. If we think the Rams are going to build a nice, healthy lead, that means they're going to be running in the second half, and they might build the lead with running in the first half. RJ talked about the injuries in Arizona. 2 of their best defensive linemen / edge rushers up front guys don't look like they're going to be playing this week. And that obviously makes the matchup a lot easier for the Rams front five. Corum could get over 33 yards. That's a line that doesn't feel slippery to me whatsoever.
Dave, what's better, Pop-Tarts or toaster strudels? Toaster strudel.
Oh, toaster strudels.
RJ?
Don't really have that big of an opinion. I'll say Pop-Tarts just to be
I think the answer is Pop-Tarts. I know that's the unpopular opinion. I think it's Pop-Tarts. Sorry, we're doing a lot of breakfast stuff on Twitter and best cereals and all that. That's come up in some of the comments. Go ahead.
I'll say Pop-Tarts just because they have the bowl where they get to bake the Pop-Tart alive, which is very, I don't know, sacrificing in a weird culture type of thing where they put him into the big toaster, I guess, and he comes out baked and then the players eat him. It's very, I don't know. Don't let your kids watch the Pop-Tart bowl because they get up to some crazy things in that game.
But get excited about it because that's probably the bowl the Miami Hurricanes are going to play in this year.
Go JMU tonight against Troy. Let's get a Duke win and a JMU blowout, and let's make sure we secure Dave, the last spot in the playoff.
A Duke win is going to help us get in?
Not you, us as in JMU.
Okay.
Yeah.
JMU.
But
and what's going to happen when you get into
better
the
than
college
Miami,
playoff?
Right? Well, we'll probably lose.
Do you want me to stay on the show? S1 @sign.
Anybody who can apply context, I feel like knows that Notre Dame is better than Miami at this point in the season.
Shush. Stop that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, yeah, you're right. Dave, we're going to put you to the test here. Sites 501, who's joining us. He also, I'm sure, is in your Fantasy Football Today chat, but certainly is on Fantasy Football Today DFS as well. Make sure you catch that show with me, Mike, and Meg on the Fantasy Football Today YouTube channel, by the way. Dave, if you had to pick yards or receptions for McBride, now we established that it was 7.5 receptions. The yardage, kind of 7.5-ish. It's 77.5. So talk to me if you had to pick one.
I would go with the receptions over the yardage. I think it's going to be, the Rams are already a zone heavy defense, so they don't want to give up big plays. It's going to be much easier for them to play their defenders back and then rally to whoever catches the ball underneath. And that's something that McBride does well. And that's something that Wilson does well. And I think that's just what the Cardinals are going to have to settle for in this game. It's just a bunch of shorter throws. So give me the receptions instead of the yardage, but they could both go over.
So Kale, a.k.a. Callie Davenport, he says Pat Bryant over 25.5 receiving yards is his favorite prop of the week. We established about 30 minutes ago that Callie is pretty sharp. RJ, any thoughts here? I feel like when you're talking about Pat Bryant and Troy Franklin, it becomes, behind Cortland Sutton, of course, it becomes a little speculative, but you can certainly pass against this Vegas defense. That probably is the path. What are your thoughts here?
You can, and I know his numbers have been high the last few weeks. They also have had a lot of passing volume in games where he's had to pass a little more, competitive games. This probably won't be a competitive game. I'm on RJ Harvey to score a touchdown, and like I said, they're going to go to him a lot in the second half. So I think you're really kind of hoping for it to hit in the first half there, and then second half, I don't know that they're going to have to do much in the passing game. And when you limit a prop like that, I think it's a lot to ask. So if I'm looking at Pat Bryant, I'm probably looking at over longest reception, just in case he only gets like one reception, maybe two receptions, and then falls a little bit short of this number.
Shout out to BetMGM because they actually have this prop. If you like the over, shout out to BetMGM because they have this prop at 24.5 at -115. But everywhere else, like Caesars, FanDuel, I don't see a line at DraftKings, Bet Rivers. It's all 29.5 or 30.5. So if you like the Pat Bryant over, go to BetMGM. If you like the Pat Bryant under for whatever reason, take any of the other books, frankly. Daniel Jones under 6.5 rushing yards. Again, Callie asks that. Dave, any thoughts on Daniel Jones? We know he has the leg issue. Seems like a pretty big deal. Any thoughts on, seems a little speculative, but what are your thoughts here?
I think the focus in Indianapolis is getting the ball out of his hands quickly, and that's what we've seen over his last two games. I would imagine that he is not that interested in running, and 6.5 rushing yards. It's a risky bet for sure. But if you're, I'm thinking that Jacksonville is going to be able to get to him, even if Trayvon Walker doesn't play. I don't have the official word on whether Walker plays or not, but I think that front for Jacksonville is actually pretty good. And that could limit, it's crazy to say this, I think it could keep Jonathan Taylor from having a monster blowout game. And I think it's going to force more of this similar game script for Daniel Jones, who honestly, I don't think he was that great last week. I think Alec Pierce was really good last week. And that might be the savior for him. Pierce and Pittman could be the saviors for Indianapolis to stay in this game against Jacksonville.
RJ, I want to get your thoughts on this game. And I do want to point out, especially when it comes to props, we have to monitor the weather a little bit because we might have, there's the potential for downpours in Jacksonville during that game. So again, it's the winter. Jacksonville doesn't have to worry about snow, but you got to worry about weather with some of this stuff. RJ, any thoughts on that Indy Jaguars game? I think, what is it? Jaguars laying 1.5 at home?
Indy laying a point.
Indy's laying the money. Okay.
Yeah, and I think Jaguars probably should be pick 'em on that game, just knowing Daniel Jones' limitations now that we can't expect him to run much with the leg he's playing on, kind of limits what they could do offensively. We've seen how that impacts them the last few weeks. Also, no Sauce Gardner. They won a bunch of games without him, so maybe it's not that big of a loss. But a guy that talented, it's going to leave a hole in the offense or in the defense with the Jaguars offense that has a lot of good weapons that can throw the ball, especially if Parker Washington does play. I know he was limited Thursday. I'm not sure what I assume he's going to be questionable. We'll see if he plays, but it's a tough team to defend when you're missing a top cornerback. So I think Jaguars will be able to score points, and then we'll see if they can shut down Jonathan Taylor, which is easier said than done. So I think it'll be a close game, probably a pick 'em. I don't think that the Jaguars should be catching points at home, knowing that the division is probably going to come down to these two, right? And so it's more the Jaguars need this game more than Indy, essentially, because Indy will be getting to play them in Indy in a rematch. So I don't know. I think the Jaguars probably win this game. I like the Jaguars at +1.5, especially like them if you want to tease it up and get them over the 3 and the 7.
Does this point total seem a touch high to you, RJ? Weather related or not?
If the weather is going to be bad, and I think it's like 60-70% chance of rain, then yeah, it seems a little high. It's probably going to be a game where they keep it on the ground, limited possessions, less possessions than we think, and that probably you get one bad kick, because of the weather, and then you're not hitting that over. So I think I'd be looking to the under if I'm going to play the total.
So we're going to finally get to our best bets. This has been such a fun show so far. We've already gone 55 minutes. We'll just go another 5-10 minutes, or maybe 5 minutes with our best bets. But I'm glad we're on the 3-shot here because I need to see Dave and RJ's face as I read this comment, because this is hilarious. And it's evidence that even though I drop the lawyer card every once in a while, it's evidence that I'm kind of an idiot, maybe. Adam, he says, and this is true, I'm sure. He says, my handle used to be Sia once said _dumb. So I changed my name to It's Adam. I probably did that. That's probably true, Dave. And I don't get it. I'm not smart, apparently.
No, you are.
That's good evidence that I'm not smart.
You are very smart. You just, I think you kind of take things. How are you with sarcasm?
Great.
Okay. So
that was sarcasm.
That was sarcastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So great.
Maybe I'm the one that's not so good with sarcasm. All right. So maybe you're a little bit more left brain, but I think we need a lot of that, especially in this betting space. We need people that are grounded, literal, very focused, very detailed. And you are that. You are very buttoned up, Sia. Pun intended.
I feel like I'm 5 parts like common sense and sarcastic and 5 parts Sheldon Cooper. And you just don't know which one is going to show up on any given day, because the fact that I once did that is like completely idiotic. But again, so when I'm doing the early edge, I'm reading the chat so fast. So I don't really have time for interpretation. I'm just reading what is there because I'm trying to do the show at the same time. So that's my excuse. All right, let's get to best bets. Thank you, Adam, for contributing. Go ahead, RJ.
Could I have one question that I like to pose to you guys?
Oh, yeah.
On a player prop, this question comes from the SportsLine Discord. Ted from the SportsLine Discord. I just wanted to give a shout out to the Discord. If you are listening to this and not aware of it, we have a Discord set up where you can ask all these type of questions all the time. You don't not just limited to the hour. Sia's in there a lot. We get Proppy in there doing some chats. Prop Bet Guy doing some chats. It's a great place to be. So go on and sign up for SportsLine. Sync your account up to our Discord and come in and live bet with us during games and all sorts of stuff we get up to. Ted asks, with the Dunzi out, do you guys like Loveland over 39.5 receiving yards?
I think so. How much time do we have left to talk?
Plenty.
You guys filibuster for a minute or two?
Yeah, we can. Well, so RJ, Komet is healthy too, right? We've got DJ Moore, we've got Luther Burden, we've got both tight ends. I love Loveland's after the catch ability. I mean, I would look at his longest reception maybe too. Mm-hmm. I just worry about the Bears going into Green Bay and having a great game passing. And like we talked about, I mean, I think the attempts might be there for Caleb, but I also think if they establish the run, then we're seeing a lot of DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai. It would be a stay away for me personally, but I don't hate the play.
Yeah, I do see that he is, like all rookie tight ends, you can see that his usage has crept up over the course of the season. He was getting 1, 2, sometimes 3 targets, and then it gets to 3, 4, 5, and then it gets to 7. So, seems like he's being more part of the game plan. They're more comfortable throwing to him. And this seems like a situation where with Odunze out, you're right. He has that after the catch ability. Where else are you going to get that? You probably get that some from Luther Burden. But I think he's the guy. Just thinking about that overtime game where he spins around a guy and takes it 40 yards for a touchdown. It just seems like that's on the table at any point for him. He had 4 straight at 40 or more before going 3 catches, 28 yards against the Eagles, but it was with 6 targets, second best targets on the season. So I think that he is going to get to this 40 number. It's probably going to be a little bit of a sweat. So maybe it's something you don't play pregame. It's something you wait, see he doesn't get an early catch and see if you can get the number at 30.5 or 29.5, and then you bang it. But I think he ultimately gets there.
I have access to this really great tool, Sia, thanks to my boss, RJ White. It tells me, it can tell me all kinds of like interesting facts about when players are targeted. And so basic example versus man coverage versus zone coverage, I can get a breakdown of Colson Loveland on the season, over the last 5 games, what have you, how he does against these coverages. And the reason why that's important to me is because the Packers tend to play a lot of zone coverage. It's just something that they do. It's something they believe in. When he's up against zone coverage, his target per route run rate is 19.1%, which for a tight end is pretty good. He is way more explosive against zone coverage than he is man coverage. This is probably because of that play that you mentioned, RJ, against Cincinnati, where he broke a tackle and he took it to the house. But still, a high explosive run rate, certainly a high catch rate. Caleb is very accurate when throwing against zone to Colson Loveland. I like this look quite a bit without Odunze there. Odunze has also been the guy that usually wins against man-to-man coverage for Chicago. And so this was a bad matchup for Odunze to begin with. This opens the door for Loveland to have a good game. So I like it a lot.
Jeffrey Chavez. I forgot to mention Zacchaeus. He said Zacchaeus will break our hearts. I love Zacchaeus. I think that's a threat as well. Let's see. There was one other. Oh, you know what I wanted to point out, in case we have some new listeners on Twitter or watching us on YouTube, as this audience continues to grow, which I absolutely appreciate. Every Friday at 3:00, we'll be here for you, answering your questions, giving out plays. Well, if you want to get in that SportsLine Discord, you just have to join SportsLine. And we have a promo code we can give you. So go to sportsline.com/join. And if you type in the promo code winners, you get 60% off the annual plan. Again, sportsline.com/join, type in the promo code winners, you get 60% off the annual plan. And then if you want to join the Discord, Ben, flash that Discord link up real quick, discord.gg/sportsline. That'll get you, as long as you remember, that'll get you right into the Discord. We have a channel for the NFL, the NBA, MLB, UFC, WNBA, PGA, you name the sport, and we've got something for it. D_A_V_V_E_, you've got something for us.
I do. While I was looking at Loveland, I thought, what the hell? Let's take a look at Luther Burden, because I think there's going to be an opportunity for him to make some plays against Green Bay. His target per route rate versus zone is about double what it is against man-to-man coverage. It's 24.3%. It's over 25% in the Bears' last 4 games. Great yards per catch average after that. Great completion rate. Really against both types of coverage. I'm starting to get more and more excited about Luther Burden and what he might be able to do. I know the yardage is at 40.5. It's already kind of high when you think about Luther Burden and what he's capable of doing. One of the exercises that I went through this week was trying to find the next Adonai Mitchell for fantasy football, and the name on the list, the top name is Burden. He's going to get his opportunity against Green Bay. This is another over that I like.
Yeah, I think to your point, when we see the data of what were the top 5 bet props are on Sunday, I think Burden's over is probably going to be one of them. People are going to love playing him with Odunze. I think there's going to be smashed, and we're going to see that number go. Even if it is 40.5 is kind of high, it's going to go up and up throughout the next couple of days.
Yeah, best number you can get right now is at BetMGM at 39.5. Looks like some other places have that as well. But yeah, 40.5 in other places. It'll probably close at 42, 43.5. The way people will, what RJ said, I think is absolutely true, but it's a good look regardless. Let's see. Let's get to our best bets. Big Cheesy says hammer the like. Thank you for saying that. And again, if you're not a member of SportsLine, we just gave you the promo code winners and get into that SportsLine Discord. So RJ, you mentioned that I'm in that Discord. So I need to be in there a little bit more. I did dip in there last night as I was losing the Cowboys bet that I had +3. As soon as CeeDee Lamb got injured, and you could tell he was going to, because of the fencing and all that stuff, you could tell he wasn't coming back in the game. I went to the live props. I saw that Flournoy was 25. He had already had 10 yards. 25 plus was like -115. Which I was like, oh my God, he's going to be the guy to step in with George Pickens and maybe a little Jake Ferguson. So I actually went into the Discord and I said, and I quote, said, Jake Flournoy 25 plus is a really good look. And literally the next offensive play, he hit the 25 plus. He ended up going for about 100. So these are the things, like, I'm not in there enough to really be like, I'm always doing that. I hope to be, but there are people, RJ, like yourself, that are doing that all the time, whether it's live bets or pre-flop bets. So just a shout out to the Discord, because it's such an incredible resource. All right, these are our week 14 best bets. Dave's got the 3 on Harvey, Bucky Irving, and Michael Wilson. RJ's got Harvey as well, Baker Mayfield, T. Higgins, and then I've got Mahomes, Stroud, Rodriguez, Cook. I'll go over what the actual picks are. But RJ, what we like to do is we like to pick out the favorite bet from somebody else. So one of the bets that's not yours. I'll let you think about it while Dave Richard says what bet he likes the best from me or you.
This show is all about RJ, and that's why I'm going to take RJ's under on Baker Mayfield, 221.5 passing yards. That's my favorite one that he gave today.
All right. I'm going to go with Michael Wilson, over 5.5 receptions at plus money. I understand that line is on the move. I really like that one. I think T. Higgins is super sneaky. So I'm going to split the baby here. I'm going to take a little bit of both of yours. All right, RJ, what's your favorite one here?
Yeah, I want to say, I already took Harvey, so I want to say Dave's Harvey pick, but I think I'll go with Dave's Bucky pick. I think it's a really sharp play. They're just going to have a lot of volume there.
All right. Big Cheesy thinks that's a really sharp play as well, as that's his, quote, 3-unit play. But don't forget, everybody, bet responsibly. All right. Do we have any closing thoughts for the show? You know what? Let's bring the recap screen one more time. I did a poor job there, and I want to make sure the audio listeners know exactly what these picks are. So I'll start with RJ. RJ likes RJ. RJ likes RJ Harvey anytime touchdown at -120. He also likes Baker Mayfield under 221.5 passing yards. Again, that's an under 221.5 at -115. And he also likes T. Higgins over 52.5 receiving yards at -115. Of course, if you remember SportsLine, you're getting a lot of prop picks from RJ, but you're also getting a lot of picks against the spread and totals on the shows, but certainly on SportsLine as well. Uncle Dave, RJ Harvey over 13.5 rush attempts at -130. Bucky Irving over 65.5 rush yards at -114. And Michael Wilson over 5.5 receptions at +110. I've got Patrick Mahomes over 34.5 pass attempts at -118. CJ Stroud under 232.5 passing yards at -114. Chris Rodriguez over 10.5 rushing attempts at -120. And James Cook over, it's a mammoth line, 99.5 rushing yards at -114. Dave, what are your closing thoughts here? And RJ, I'll go to you on the same question.
I'm going to end the show the way I started it, which is bitching and moaning about being 2-3 the last time we were together, but also just be selective, because there are a lot of lines out there that look funky and weird. And if you get that spidey sense, just take a step back from the phone, take a step back from the screen and say, you know what? You're not going to get my money on this. I'd rather be away on a play and not take it, and then go, oh, I wish I had taken that. That would have been nice to hit. Then put my money on something and go, oh, God, why did I take this? I really wasn't feeling it. I wasn't loving it. You got to love your picks.
RJ, I want to get closing thoughts from you, but can I jam in one more question? I'm curious about your take. Sorry, I know we've gone long, but people want to know on the Jets-Dolphins game, because I had a lot of leans. I was leaning towards Breece Hall over, because I just think he's going to get so much volume. I stayed away from that. I know a lot of people want to know about Adonai Mitchell and John Mechie as well. And then on the Dolphins side, like, people probably want to fade Tua, but they like Achane. Any thoughts on that game before we get out of here?
Yeah, with Mitchell, looking stronger than he did his first few games, I think it's tough to play either of those receivers overs. Either one of them could have a little bit of a limited game, some drops, and then it was funny when Mechie started dropping passes. I was like, did they body switch before this game? Because they look like the exact opposite receivers that we're getting used to. So I have a trouble trusting either one. I would look to the line that was maybe inflated and play that under. The prop I would look in that game is Devon Achane over longest rush, whatever it is, because he just seems capable of breaking one to the house at any time. In this Jets defense, I'm not giving them too much credit. I did take Miami -2.5. I was struggling because I kind of wanted to take Jets +3, kind of want to take Miami -2.5. I know Miami tends to struggle in the cold, and it's supposed to be sub 40s. They are, I believe, 9 straight losses, 1-8 ATS in sub 40 temperature. But this just sets up to me like they are the cold weather team. They're just going to run and play defense against a bad Jets offense, and they're going to come away with a win here. So I think playing JHN overs is the way to go. I'm hesitant to go over on anybody else.
Callie Davenport says, great show. Big Cheesy says, great show, fellas. He's going to head to the store to get some toaster strudels. Jeffrey Chavez says, thanks for crunching the numbers for us, guys. Love the content. Again, so much more content at SportsLine in the SportsLine Discord. So get in there. RJ, did you have fun? Will you come back?
I had fun. I'm looking at our rundown, and it seems like you guys had another guest on at one point, and he went 2-1, and that's one Mr. Larry Hartstein. So my goal here is to go 3-0, so I can beat Larry and hold that over him for the rest of the year if neither one of us get back on the show.
That is a great idea, but both of you need to get back onto the show at some point. Thanks for subbing in, RJ. We always love to have you. Next week, same time, same place, same great show. Maybe not with RJ, but we'll have Proppy and most likely Claudia as well with Uncle Dave and myself. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great weekend. Enjoy football Sunday and Monday and all the weeks left. Don't take it for granted. I know you're tired. I know, like Dave, Uncle Dave, you got to be tired, right? We're like 14 weeks in, but like we're going to miss it as soon. You're going to be doing the Sunday tweet, how many Sundays we got to go and all that stuff. So immerse yourself in this, but bet responsibly. Have a great weekend. This is the Early Edge NFL Prop Show.
Oh, well, you're not ending the show like that.
Oh my gosh. All right. So RJ, Dave, you want to do it?
Well, yeah, I mean, no, everybody who's watching, just don't watch for the next 30 seconds. RJ, when the show's over, we all yell, let's hit it big.
Yeah.
Can you help us out?
Let's hit it big.
Yell, let's hit it big. All right.
Okay.
All right. Back to you, Sia.
Oh, okay. Well, you know how we always like to close the show. A thing I never forget. Ladies and gentlemen,
let's hit it big.
Let's hit it big.